Jai Gurudev, and thank you for continuing this conversation with us. In the previous segment, we discussed that Upanayanam ceremony in great detail, but there are still several aspects we would like to explore. The sacred thread ceremony, while a deeply significant rite of passage, seems to have many layers and variations depending on region, community, and tradition. Could you elaborate on some of the regional variations and the theological underpinnings of the Upanayanam? Jagadev, of course, it is a pleasure. The Upanayanam or sacred thread ceremony indeed carries regional variations in terms of rituals, customs, and the age at which it is performed generally. The ceremony has a pan Indian importance, but it is particularly prevalent in communities that follow the Vedic traditions, especially Brahmin, Kshatriya, and Vaishya families. For instance, in South India, the ceremony is known as Upakarma and it is also closely associated with the celebrations of Rishab or Avani Avitam, which is usually celebrated annually, particularly for men of certain communities. Theologically, Upnanam is tied to the concept of Dvija or twice born. The first birth is physical, biological birth, and the second birth occurs when an individual is initiated into the study of sacred knowledge, particularly the Vedas. The second birth signifies a deeper spiritual awakening, the first steps toward becoming a true seeker of wisdom or a Brahman and stepping into a life of discipline, responsibility, and spiritual practice. So, Upanayana isn't just a social or cultural rite, it is a deeply spiritual initiation. Can you tell us more about the meaning behind the sacred thread itself? It seems to have deep symbolic significance in many texts, but I would love to hear your insights. Yes, absolutely. The Yajnopavita, the sacred thread worn during Upanayana, is highly symbolic and multifaceted. It is traditionally made of three strands of cotton, which represent the Trivarga, the threefold path of life of Dharma, righteousness, Artha, prosperity, and Kama, or pleasures. These three aspects are the guiding principles of human life, and the sacred thread serves as a constant reminder of one's duty to align with them in all aspects of existence. The thread also has a connection to the number three, which is significant in Hinduism. It refers to the three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas, the three qualities that govern human nature, as well as the three states of existence: Jagrat, the waking, Swapna, the dreaming, and the Sushupti, or the deep sleep. The three strands are knotted in such a way that they create a symbolic link to these three deep philosophical teachings, binding the wearer to their spiritual responsibilities. On a more practical level, the sacred thread signifies a person's commitment to study and learn. The Upanayam ceremony is often seen as a formal initiation into the study of the Vedas, and the sacred thread, which is worn over the left shoulder and across the body, marks a person's new role as a student of spiritual wisdom and discipline. That is fascinating. You mentioned the study of the Vedas. How does the Upanayam connect to education in the traditional sense, and how does it relate to the idea of brahmacharya? That's a great question. The Upanayam ceremony is very much a gateway to education, and particularly it marks the beginning of formal instruction in Vedic knowledge and scriptures. The young initiate is symbolically seen as entering the life of brahmacharya, the stage of celibacy and studenthood, which is considered one of the four ashrama stages of life in Hindu philosophy. Brahmacharya itself is not limited to abstinence from physical indulgences, but is about a discipline of the mind, senses, and actions. The discipline is instilled during the period of Brahmacharya is aimed at developing control over one's desires, thoughts, and attachments, thereby allowing for deep intellectual and spiritual growth. The initiate's daily routine would include the study of sacred texts, meditation, prayer, and service, all under the guidance of a guru or teacher. The brahmacharya period is often viewed as one of intense learning and self discipline, where the young person dedicates their mind and heart to mastering knowledge. The role of the guru during this phase cannot be understated. He is not just a teacher but a spiritual guide, responsible for shaping the disciple's character, providing not only intellectual but also moral and ethical teachings. What role does the guru play during the Upanayam ceremony? I understand there is a special relationship between the guru and the disciple that extends beyond just a ceremony. The guru plays a central and sacred role both during the Upanayam ceremony and throughout the initiate's life. The relationship between a guru and a shishya disciple is considered one of the most important in the Vedic tradition. The guru is seen as a spiritual guide who carries the wisdom of the ancient texts and, more importantly, serves as a bridge between the divine knowledge and the student. In the Upanayam ceremony, the guru plays a pivotal role in the initiation. The young initiate receives the sacred thread directly from the guru, who chants the Vedic mantras during the rites. The Guru also imparts the Gayatri mantra, one of the most sacred of all Vedic mantras, which is recited during the ceremony. This mantra is believed to invoke divine wisdom and protection, and it marks the formal spiritual awakening of the initiate. The Guru's role, therefore, is not just one of performing the rituals, but also of transferring spiritual energy and knowledge to the student. The importance of the Guru disciple relationship in Hinduism goes beyond just formal instruction. The Guru is the embodiment of divine knowledge and is treated with the utmost reverence. In fact, there is a popular saying in the tradition, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, and Guru Devo Maheshwara, meaning the Guru is seen as equivalent to Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the transformer or the destroyer. The spiritual significance of the Guru cannot be overstated, as the disciple is believed to be in the process of receiving a transmission of divine knowledge, which enables them to reach self realization and ultimate liberation. That relationship is indeed profound. Now, I would like to shift gears a bit and ask about the modern day relevance of Upanayanam. As Hindu society becomes more urbanized and diverse, how do you see the significance of the ceremony evolving? Is it still practiced with the same intensity and reverence? That's an insightful question. While it is true that urbanization and modernization have brought about changes in how many rituals are practiced, the essence and spiritual importance of Upanayanam have remained largely intact, though its form might have adapted to contemporary realities in traditional rural settings. The Upanayanam is still carried out with great ceremony and meticulous adherence to Vedic protocols. However, in urban areas, especially among the younger generation, there might be a more simplified version of the ceremony, or in some cases, a delayed performance of the ritual where parents might choose to wait until the child reaches an older age. One of the challenges in the modern context is the shifting priorities of education in past. The brahmacharya stage after the Upanyanam was associated with intense study of the Vedas and a disciplined life in ashrams. Today, education is largely secular, and many families do not have direct access to Vedic learning institutions. However, there are efforts to reintegrate Vedic knowledge and spiritual teachings into the modern education system, especially in the form of gurukulas, retreats, and specialized spiritual institutions. Furthermore, the ceremony itself is increasingly being understood as more than just an initiation to religious study, but as a means of connecting with one's heritage, culture, and spiritual identity. Families today may emphasize the ethical and moral dimensions of the ceremony and the life lessons it imparts: responsibility, respect, and devotion to knowledge and truth. That's a thoughtful perspective. Before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts on how the practice of Upanayana might continue to evolve in the coming decades, especially in terms of its global presence? I believe that the sacred thread ceremony will continue to have a vital place in the lives of Hindus worldwide, especially as the Indian diaspora has increasingly globalized. Upanayanam, in its true spirit, is not only a cultural tradition but a spiritual practice that transcends geographical boundaries. Many Hindus living abroad are reconnecting with their roots, and Upanayanam is one of the ways they reaffirm their identity and commitment to preserving their cultural heritage. The rise of digital platforms also offers new opportunities for education and ritual participation. Online tutorials, virtual gatherings, and the sharing of knowledge through platforms like social media have made it possible for people worldwide to learn about these rituals in a way that was not previously possible. This can help foster a deeper understanding. It is clear that the Upanayanam ceremony and its cultural, spiritual, and educational significance are evolving in fascinating ways. Given the expansion of the global Hindu community, how do you think Upanayanam is adapting in regions outside India, particularly in Western countries where people are often less familiar with the intricacies of these rituals? That's an excellent point. The global Hindu diaspora, especially in the West, is increasingly interested in maintaining its cultural and spiritual practices, but also adapting them to fit into contemporary life. Upanayanam is a rite that has, in many cases, crossed national borders and found new meaning in a multicultural, multi faith context. In places like the United States, Canada, the UK, and Australia, we see a growing number of second and third generation Indian children being initiated into the tradition of Upanayanam. However, the ceremony itself has evolved in response to practical considerations. For example, many families choose to have a smaller, more intimate version of the ceremony, often within the community rather than in the traditional elaborate setting that one might see in rural India. There are also instances where the Upanayam ceremony is performed as part of a broader cultural or community celebration. Some Hindu temples abroad conduct mass Upanayam ceremonies, inviting large groups of children or young adults to participate in the rituals together. This not only helps preserve the practice but also reinforces a sense of collective identity and spiritual unity in diaspora communities. The growth of digital platforms, as I mentioned earlier, has also played a significant role in educating young people abroad about these traditions. There are various online educational programs, webinars, and virtual spiritual retreats that help bridge the knowledge gap for those who might not have direct access to Vedic scholars or gurus in their immediate vicinity. This has allowed more people to stay connected to the spiritual essence of the ceremony, even when geographical distances or lack of immediate access to priests or traditional gurus may be a challenge. It is wonderful to hear that these adaptations are happening organically. The role of technology is undeniable, but I'm curious about how the younger generation, who might be more influenced by globalized secular education, perceives the Upanayam ceremony today. Do you think there is a growing interest among youth, or is the tradition becoming more of a formalized cultural observance without much spiritual depth? That's a nuanced question, and it reflects a broader shift we see in many religious and cultural practices worldwide, not just within Hinduism. There is undoubtedly a segment of the younger generation who, while participating in Upanayana, may approach it from a cultural or familial perspective rather than purely a spiritual one. For some, it may feel like a rite of passage, much like a graduation ceremony or a milestone event in life, without a full engagement with its deep philosophical meaning. However, there is also a growing interest in what I call spiritual revivalism, particularly among youth who are searching for a deeper sense of meaning in their lives. These young people, many of whom may be exposed to global spiritual and mindfulness movements like yoga and meditation, are increasingly looking to reconnect with their roots. They want to understand not only how to perform these rituals, but why they are significant. Interestingly, some studies and research indicate a resurgence of interest in Vedic knowledge and the philosophical underpinnings of rituals even among young Hindus in the West. They are learning about the deeper spiritual dimensions of Upanayam, such as its connection to the sacred nature of the Gayatri Mantra, the importance of discipline in the Brahmacharya ashram, and the role of sadhana or spiritual practice in shaping one's life. In particular, there has been a renewed focus of mindfulness, self discipline, and the ethical life, which aligns well with the values imparted by the Upanayam ceremony. This cultural shift can be seen in the increased number of youth attending traditional ashrams and spiritual camps where they study the Vedas, learn Sanskrit, and engage in spiritual practices, sometimes even preparing for their Upnayam ceremony with more serious spiritual intent than previous generations might have. That is encouraging to hear, especially when we think of how traditional practices can sometimes feel disconnected from modern life. In your opinion, what do you think are the most important lessons or values that the Upanayam ceremony teaches, especially in today's world where secularism and individualism are prominent? The Upanayam ceremony is rich with values that remain relevant even in today's secular, individualistic world. At its core, it teaches discipline, responsibility, and the importance of education. These values are universal, transcending time and place. The Brahmacharya, discipline and self control phase that follows the Upanayam ceremony is all about the mastery of the self. It is not just about controlling the physical self, but also developing control over one's emotions, thoughts, and desires. In a world where we are constantly bombarded with distractions and temptations, the practice of self discipline is invaluable. It teaches us to focus, to prioritize our goals, and to live with intentionality, commitment to knowledge and truth. The Vedic tradition places a high premium on the pursuit of knowledge and truth. The Upanayam ceremony marks the start of a person's journey to knowledge, not just secular knowledge, but also spiritual wisdom. In today's world where information is often fragmented and superficial, the pursuit of deeper, more meaningful knowledge is essential for intellectual growth and moral development. Ethical living, the idea of living according to Dharma, which is essentially living in accordance with truth, righteousness, and justice, is a central tenet of the Upanayam ceremony. It teaches the initiate that their actions must align with higher ethical standards which help maintain harmony in society. This ethical orientation is more important than ever today when the world is grappling with issues of social justice, inequality, and environmental sustainability. And with the connection to the larger community, the Upanayam ceremony places the individual within the context of a larger community, both the family and the larger society. It emphasizes the importance of Sangha or community and Seva or the selfless service. In our individualistic age, when people often prioritize personal success over collective well being, these values remind us of the importance of contributing to the welfare of others and staying connected to our cultural and spiritual heritage with spiritual awareness. And finally, the Upanayam ceremony initiates an individual into the life of spiritual practice. It reminds the initiate of their ultimate purpose in life, which is to realize their highest potential as a human being. While modern society often emphasizes material achievement, Upanayana provides a timeless counterpoint, urging the initiate to consider spiritual growth as a fundamental part of their life's journey. These are profound values indeed. It is clear that the Upanayam ceremony offers much more than just an initiation into religious life. It offers a foundation for a purposeful, disciplined, and ethical way of living. To close our conversation, could you share a message for the young people, particularly those outside India who are looking to understand and perhaps even reclaim their tradition and these traditions? My message to young people, particularly in the diaspora, is this: the tradition of Upanayana, like all Vedic traditions, is not just a relic of the past but a living, evolving a practice that has much to offer in the modern world. The values of discipline, education, spiritual growth, and ethical living are as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. I encourage young people to explore these practices not merely as cultural observances but as spiritual tools for self realization and social harmony. Reclaiming these traditions doesn't mean adhering to them in a rigid or traditionalist way. Rather, it is about recognizing their deep spiritual and philosophical significance and applying them meaningfully in the context of modern life. The Upanayam ceremony is a doorway to a life of greater purpose, clarity, and connection to both your personal truth and the larger world around you. In a world that can often feel fragmented and disconnected, practices like Upanayam help us reconnect with the timeless wisdom of our ancestors. They remind us that we are part of a much larger living tradition, one that has always emphasized the pursuit of knowledge, self discipline, and the service of others. Embrace these teachings as a source of strength and guidance, and let them help you navigate the complexities of the world with wisdom and grace. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insights. This has been an enlightening conversation, and I'm sure many of our listeners will gain a deeper understanding and appreciation of the sacred thread ceremony and its timeless relevance. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to discuss these important topics, and I hope this conversation inspires many to explore the depth and beauty of these ancient traditions. May we all continue to walk the path of wisdom and self realization. Jai Gurudev.